Multiple reports say projected top pick out of Washington, Markelle Fultz, is working out for the 76ers today as the Celtics are looking to trade their number 1 pick to the Sixers. Celts would pick third and also get a future first-rounder as part of a package. Matinee baseball, White Sox with a pair of homers off Marcus Stroman lead the Blue Jays 3-1 now in the bottom of the 7th inning. Top of the 3rd inning, Indians ahead of the Twins 3-0. Jose Ramirez went deep to help the Indians get that lead. Pete Rose was honored by the Reds Saturday with the unveiling of a statue outside Great American Ballpark. This is Maria Marino on NBC Sports Radio, NBCSportsRadio.com, and the mobile app.
At California's #1 volume GM dealer, Mark Christopher Auto Center, they're cranking up the heat because summer has begun to heat up and the deals have never been hotter. Right now, you can choose from over 1,600 vehicles in their one giant location with down to 0% for 72 months on selected models. It's California's biggest and best selection, and it's never undersold. Chevys, Buicks, Cadillacs, and GMC trucks. You'll find Mark Christopher Auto Center right on the 10 freeway in Ontario, or you can go to markchristopher.com. Mark Christopher is California's #1 volume GM dealer. Family owned and doing things right since 1975. Remember, they're cranking up the heat on summer deals at Mark Christopher Auto Center, Vineyard exit of Interstate 10 in Ontario.
This is Pastor Greg from Chosen Generation Radio Show, heard right here on KCAA, 1 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Do any of these sound familiar? Not sleeping well, waking up tired, drinking more coffee than usual, can't stay focused, craving sugary drinks and snacks, feel like you're stuck on a treadmill, having trouble managing your weight, not sick but not firing on all cylinders? Any one of these could mean that you might have a system overload, and Thyrodrenal might just be right for you. Think about it. You've probably been feeling like this for a while. Life has a way of wearing you down, and if you aren't getting the right nutrients, then physical and emotional wear and tear will take its toll. Most of us at some time or another could use some nutritional support for our adrenal and thyroid glands to bring things back in balance. Our bodies respond well to optimal nutrition to keep daily energy levels up and stress levels down. Try Thyrodrenal from Michael's Naturopathic Programs, a nourishing support formula with vitamins, minerals, and herbs to put back what life takes out. Look for Michael's on the label. We're serious about good health. Thyrodrenal is available at leading health food stores nationwide. If you don't see it on the shelf, then ask for it by name. Thyrodrenal.
You worked too hard, you ate too much, the cheesecake made you greedy. Let your aching head and stomach hear this message from old Speedy. Alka-Seltzer, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Ah, those Speedy Alka-Seltzer bubbles burst into action to relieve your upset stomach and aching head fast. Use only as directed. Oh, what a relief it is. What a relief.
You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
If everybody had an ocean across the USA, then everybody'd be served.
Good afternoon, IE, the Inland Empire. It is hot as out there, and it's only getting hotter. It's pretty brutal. A little off today for a lot of reasons, primarily of which is, sadly, I found out that cargo pants are no longer in style, and that's kind of what I got, so I didn't really get a lot of prep time in. I usually like to spend my morning, going over my notes, but instead I was, going through my clean pile of clothes, and of course, it's all cargo shorts and T-shirts. So anyway, I went deep somewhere in the closet because I don't like to be out of style, and I found some nice shorts I got a long time ago for Father's Day. The problem is they're a 36, and I'm a 38. And I wish I could rush through the show, but an hour is an hour. There's no way to speed it up. But I jammed into them, and I don't know what looks worse, cargo shorts or overly tight shorts. But be that as it may, I'm struggling, and that's why, in case you hear some voice changes. And I don't, I was thinking about this. Why are cargo shorts out of style? I know most of us don't carry those man purses or what do they call those, fanny packs? Unless I suppose there's a gun in it. I don't carry either or neither. I carry neither a fanny pack or a gun. But I used to use my cargo shorts for my change and money, my cell phone, my keys, my wallet, all my cargo. But no longer. So now I have to carry it in my hands because I can't fit anything into these shorts. But the other day, June 17th, that's Alice's birthday. Mother's birthday was today. She'd have been 77 years old. And as you all know, I swear to the fact that unless we had one person in our life giving us motivation and some self-worth and an idea of the future, then we probably didn't make it. And I'm always thankful to her and her, not thankful for her ways. Surely they were illegal. But they did me okay. Got moving forward. So happy birthday, Mother, wherever you are looking down on your little Eddie doing his little IE radio show in his overly tight pants. And I'll try to make this a good one for you. Though she doesn't quite like my progressive ways, never did. But I gave up on that battle long ago. Today we have a lot to get to. Well, we're going to cover our wages. That's right. Let's have an intellectual discussion on political economy and economy in general. Stay tuned. It'll be gripping. I assure you here on the Ed O'Brien Show, still an amateur. I forget to introduce myself. On the Ed O'Brien Show is Ed O'Brien. AM 1050, 106.5, 102.3 here on Kcaa. Man, tough week in the news. More mass shootings. You just got to shake your head. People can get guns and sit there at a ballpark and shoot people. Don't know what the answer is. It's complicated. It's got to be somewhere in the middle, though. It can't be all one way or the other, it seems to me, like most things. But that's a never-ending battle that will probably, sadly enough, so long as we got lots of money in it, never be ended. But on a up note, congratulations to Supervisor Gonzalez. She brought to us, through her hard work and dedication, some affordable housing in our IE over there in Bloomington. And as you know from last week's show and the show before last, we have really pushed the issue of our poverty here, and we'll continue to do that on this show. Got to reach into my Americano. So, but that is no easy feat, and for a politician to push affordable housing and to put her name to it and to count it as a success is a really a step in the right direction, and kudos to her and her bold leadership. Speaking of housing, you know, the questions still pour in from London. How that all occurred, I won't speculate, because the more I read, the more it does appear, as in all cases where tragedy strikes, fingers point. Statements are reminded as to those who were on apparently the right side and those who were on the wrong side. But I suspect it's again going to come somewhere in the middle where we needed to do some upgrades, perhaps not enough dedication to doing them the right way, not enough funding for oversight. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. The death toll is tragic as it is now and only supposed to rise. But we all should be learning from it and taking a look at that. So, let's get to it. I know you've all been dying for an economic discussion about wages and how the X and Y curves operate upon each other, and how we look at productivity and wages throughout the decades. But it is important. It is a raging debate among economists, those that are in the academy that are likely to be, at least in my opinion, less polemical than those that are on the right and left. But because, frankly, I don't understand the academic debates, and what I mean by that, I don't understand their chi-squared and their standard deviation language, but I do understand their point and what they're trying to get at. So what I always go to are my standard left and right think tank languages. I'm sorry, they're they're reports. American Enterprise Institute, the Heritage Foundation on the right, and they leave us to grapple with what it is we're going to do. But wages affect not only the way we live, those of us that are lucky enough to earn wages, but it also affects crime, poverty, housing issues. So those of us that are making wages are actually impacted on policies that are designed to not only make our wages more stable, but also to account for those of us that are not making wages, and those of us that may be making wages in the millions and perhaps billions of dollars. But the idea is this, and I always got this kind of from my mother, and that is if you have some money, you have some hope. And if you get some hope and you got a little bit of money, my mother didn't use this language, but I think what you try to do is develop some game so you can hopefully find yourself a life partner and engage in life activities, building a house, family. And then what you want is to secure those things that you've earned, and then you move forward. No matter where you start, I think at the end of the day, this is where we try to get. But we can only get there, firstly and foremost, is if we have hope for tomorrow and the years ahead. Underlying, in my opinion, before we go to break, of our divided politics, our insecurity, our visceral debate on the economy and what we do best is some data underlying the fact that we work more, our productivity is up, but our wages are stagnated. And there is debate on, in fact, how much they're stagnated. And we're going to get into that after the break, because it's important as to what angle you take and how we move forward to try to relieve some of this vitriol that is going on in our politics. See you in 90 seconds. Take a break. Go get a cool drink. I'll be sipping on my beverage, and this is the Ed O'Brien Show. See you in 90.
A bushy, bushy blonde hairdo, serving you.
Hi, everybody. Ray Lucia here with some important information about debt, your debt. Whether you have a first or second mortgage, you're looking to buy or refi a home or rental property, or just need to consolidate your credit cards to lower your payments and save some serious interest, you need to do some loan financial planning with Steve Alladort, my mortgage man, at loanfinancialplanner.com. Now, Steve's not your garden variety mortgage broker. He actually spends time evaluating how you can use the current super competitive interest rates to pay off your mortgage early, purchase a rental property, improve your cash flow, upgrade to your dream home, or even help your kids or grandkids get into a house. That's what loan financial planning is all about. Steve's been helping me and my listeners for over 2 decades, and I can tell you he is the best finance guy in the business. Go to loanfinancialplanner.com. That's loanfinancialplanner.com.
Or call Steve Alladort at 888-563-1070. That's 888-563-1070.
Del Walmsley here. The first thing you're going to have to learn is that until you stop expecting our politicians or anyone else to change your life isn't going to change. The only person who can change your life is you, but you need to know how. Listen to my show, the Del Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and the help begins. Right here on KCAA, now broadcasting on 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, the stations that leave no listener behind.
KCAA is your CNBC news affiliate. We're the station that gets down to business.
If everybody had a notion.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Ed O'Brien Show. I am Ed O'Brien, KCAA 1050, 102.3 FM and 106.FM for those of you that stay on the FM dial. I've never been on the FM dial much. Been a talk radio junkie since I've been 6, when my mother bought me my first transistor radio to listen to the Boston Celtics and Johnny Most and the Boston Bruins. And during the summer, I got to listen to the Red Sox. It was terrific. Those were the good old days, because that was in the 70s. That's when we were making money, doing okay. Late 60s, early 70s, but then it kind of flattened out, and the debate rages. As you all know from your textbooks in economics from 8th and 9th grade, assuming we teach those things anymore. We probably don't, because it's not such a good story. But after World War II, you know, and the men came back and the women went back into the home. Not such a good thing. The point of the matter is America was the only one left standing. But for the tragedy of Pearl Harbor, we skated on our infrastructure being damaged, and all over Europe it was flattened. And to get goods made, to get things out, the Americans were the one producing it and getting it overseas. At least this time we had used the Marshall Plan, which was to encourage the European development, European rebuilding, and not to exact sanctions, which I think is important to remember, that we learn from our history. But thankfully, I guess, we have not leveled our, and I say I guess because we're still at war, never forget. We're at the longest war in American history, but it hasn't flattened countries. And after the late 60s, early 70s, we had an area of difficulty, as you all remember. I remember being a little kid sitting in Alice's car with no air conditioning, Toyota Corolla with the hatchback, like little wagon. And you would go by gas stations where they would have a red flag, no gas, yellow flag, you better get it, green flag, go ahead and get in that long line and get your gas. But what we were doing is spending a lot of money. We were spending a lot of money on the war on poverty. We were spending a lot of money on Vietnam. And we had gas crises. OPEC crises, and we began a long stretch of stagflation. And since then, depending on what you look at, and I'm going to cite just generally so you can follow along and know where I'm getting my data. As I was saying earlier, the Economic Policy Institute, September 2015, did a good study. And from the right side, we got Heritage Foundation, July 23 study, both battling over the issue of productivity and wages. And the conundrum has been, why has productivity increased and the American worker not gained equally? And it depends on what you look at. It depends on who you ask. And we're going to at least introduce the debate so we can get a handle on what's going on so that maybe we can understand where we're at right now. Because I believe, as history shows us, we are less antagonistic towards each other. When, you know what, when I'm doing well in my household and I can buy what I need and get my kids to college, I'm less concerned about what my neighbors are doing. But as soon as the economy and insecurity begins, we start to look for the troublemakers everywhere. No less an immigration policy throughout our history. But if we look at this data, if you look at what the American Enterprise Institute says, they say productivity is for a visual for you out there. Think of a mountain you don't want to climb unless you are inclined to want to climb steep mountains. It's like the old Price is Right guy, the yodeler that would climb that steep mountain. And that's productivity growth. Up until recently, Americans have been quite productive. We still are more productive. I think we're 5th on the list across European nations or the developed world. Even though we work longer hours, our productivity is not rising. That's recent history. But from the late 60s on up, productivity, even according to to both left and right, it's a steep climb, and it's a good climb. It shows that productivity is up. And that's important because economists generally tag what we would expect in wage growth for you and me to be somewhat relative to that productivity, because after all, we are creating the wealth. The owners of capital provide us with the ideas. They provide us with the infrastructure in which to create. And then since we've become alienated from our labor, we sell it to these corporations who will put us to work and give us good benefits, hopefully. And we begin to create wealth. And as we create the wealth, the productivity increases, and our wages, in theory, are to increase. Now, I think that's a fairly simple concept to understand, and I think, generally speaking, the academics that are more or less in the public sphere of influencing policy agree with that general assumptions. Now, what it gets tricky is you may feel, at least as I feel, my buying power is not moving up. I feel like I work harder. I feel like, and I talk to friends and others, we talk about the same thing. We feel like we're working hard. We're doing what we need to do, but we're not necessarily getting ahead. How many of us could just go to the savings account right now and find that down payment for the apartment our kids want to rent now that they've graduated, right? How many of us could? I probably could, but it was going to be close, and it was going to, it's going to hurt. But I probably could do that. Some of us could, some of us couldn't. Most of us would want to. How many of us keep an eye closely on the pump? You know, it makes a difference to me because I drive a lot. Whether it's at 220 or 275, yeah, I'm one of those that waits in Costco to fill up my Versa. Because I need that extra, that extra $5 over the course of a month, each tank, that starts to add up. So if that's what you're feeling, and whether we want to accept it or not, the economy is all based on feeling. That's why we have confidence ratings. If you're feeling that, you know what, this gas tank isn't going to hurt me so much, and you start to feel that over the long term, maybe your wages have gone up or inflation's gone down. But I haven't talk to anybody, at least in my cohort, the folks that I work with and socialize with, that have been so confident. Now, where we get the debate, the Heritage Foundation report shows a steep curve just like productivity. And they say, really, there is no problem. If you look at wage growth and you look at productivity growth, they are in line such that we all should be at least generally satisfied. There is even according to the Heritage Foundation, there's a dip coming in 2012 is what I'm looking at right now, and quarter 2012. But that's okay. I mean, that was the recession, and we would expect there to be some differences. And frankly speaking, if you're afraid of your job, you're going to work like the Dickens. You're going to be as productive as you possibly can so that you don't lose that job, even though we know wages were going down. But what they use is average wages. This is where it's really important for us to look at our public schools and really get into a statistics class, which I never had, and I didn't have until college. And it's not that tricky, even if you are challenged with math. But it really opens your eyes, and then you can start to look at these statistics. Now, average is quite different than the median, right? Average takes all of the wage earners, takes their salaries, adds them up, divides by the number of average worker, or the number of workers. And that's important because what happens is, over time, from the 70s through current day, CEOs started making unbelievable salaries. As you recall, and I wish I had that stat off the top of my head. I don't, but I think somewhere along the line in the 50s and 60s, the average CEO made 6 times what the worker on the floor made, but now it's like 300 times. CEOs' salaries have gone through the roof, their wages. What the Enterprise Institute used was the median, the middle. So if the average rise, or there are high and there are low, they take the middle, the exact middle number. And if they take the median, it's 8.7%. That's how much our wages have grown since the early 70s to current day. For a visual, that's a mountain. Well, it's not even a mountain. It is a meandering path that we all could take and without much exertion. It is fairly flat. There's a decline in the mid-90s, there's a uptick, and then the beginning of the decline over the period of the recession. So we are working harder, we are working more, and if you want to include the high-end earners with us, then everybody's doing equally well. But if you take out those high-end earners, or at least account for the high-end earners, and use a median wage, then our salaries have gone up 8%. Now, think about a house from the 1973. I think my mother bought the house, my mother and father. I think it was like, I think it was a $20,000 house, $25,000 house built in something like 1880. To current houses now, it's unaffordable. I don't know how kids graduating college with a degree in poli-sci or philosophy, things that I would encourage folks to take, unless you're a math whiz and you just like that stuff. I don't see how they're going to come out and afford these homes or even apartments. And I think one of the reasons we look at is wages. Teachers, lawyers, all starting out at the average folks graduating are struggling with their wages and the prices that we must pay. And the prices being food, gas, housing, rent, all have gone up. And when adjusted for that, you have skyrocketed your productivity because you've learned how to handle technology, you've learned to computerize, you've learned to do all of these things and have adapted to compete You probably went to night school if you needed to learn a new trade or a new skill. And, there are some great companies still out there that would even pay their workers to go learn the new skills. And we've done this so that we could become adaptive and increase our productivity. All agree. That steep climb out of the 70s. But our wages are flat if we consider where that median is. And that median adjusts for all of us worker bees making everything from a decent salary where we can afford a car for our spouse and for our own commutes, get our kids to college, maybe support some loans, and those of us that are really struggling down at the bottom. When we consider those folks, and that's the country, that's middle America, that's where we start to feel uncertain. And in our own minds, we want to be doing better. We want to have this insecurity to go away. But it's not. And there are policies that we can do. And I've gone way over my time here for the break. And go ahead and cool off. Get yourself a little spritzer. Hopefully you're sitting under a little tree. You got your grass mowed. And I will see you in 90 seconds to continue on some policies that we can look at. Thank you for listening. It's the Ed O'Brien Show on AM 1050.
You'd see 'em wearing their baggies, Warachi sandals too. A bushy.
This is Pastor Greg from Chosen Generation Radio Show, heard right here on KCAA, 1 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Do any of these sound familiar? Not sleeping well, waking up tired, drinking more coffee than usual, can't stay focused, craving sugary drinks and snacks, feel like you're stuck on a treadmill, having trouble managing your weight, not sick but not firing on all cylinders? Any one of these could mean that you might have a system overload, and Thyroadrenal might just be right for you. Think about it. You've probably been feeling like this for a while. Life has a way of wearing you down, and if you aren't getting the right nutrients, then physical and emotional wear and tear will take its toll. Most of us at some time or another could use some nutritional support for our adrenal and thyroid glands to bring things back in balance. Our bodies respond well to optimal nutrition to keep daily energy levels up and stress levels down. Try Thyroadrenal from Michael's Naturopathic Programs, a nourishing support formula with vitamins, minerals, and herbs to put back what life takes out. Look for Michael's on the label. We're serious about good health. Thyroadrenal is available at leading health food stores nationwide. If you don't see it on the shelf, then ask for it by name. Thyroadrenal.
Are you tired of CNN constantly negative news headlines? Then come balance with Dr. Marissa, the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura. Tune in every Thursday at 7 for the podcast of the year top 10 award-winning show, Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, and FM 106.5, streaming online at kcaaradio.com. Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah, right here on KCAA, the stations that leave no listener behind.
You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
If everybody had a notion,
Welcome back, everybody, to the Ed O'Brien Show.
then everybody'd be
I'm Ed O'Brien. That's right.
like California.
Trying to practice my radio voice out here on AM 1050 in the confines of free air conditioning. Thank you to KCAA for keeping us cool. But we have a hot topic where I left off. Hopefully that you are a little incensed, depending on what your perspective is. But I want to be clear that with the debate of the steep climb of productivity and either the steep climb of earnings, if you take all earnings, or the flat earnings curve, if you take the median earnings over the 70s to the current day, I take the median because I think that's a better picture of average America. Just like you would want to, as I always argued in high school, you should grade on a curve because I can't be in the top, and I'd rather be based on a median and take out all of those whiz kids so that my grades didn't look so bad. Let's take out the high earners. Let's look at America, you and I, and we see that it's flat. So, all right, I'm biased. You can attack me for that I'm taking that curve. Those of you that want to take all of it because we believe in that American dream and we too one day will be a CEO making millions of dollars, well, then take that curve. And you can make that argument. And there are implications for policy on that, right? If you take the heritage approach, and it's an intellectual approach, there are implications. So you would argue pretty much leave things alone. We know from the heritage approach there are costs that have gone up. And Heritage would say, let's look for ways in which we can reduce costs for college, for example. Well, let's take a view that perhaps maybe some tax incentives. If you send your kid to college, you could get a break there if you're average America. What they would certainly not do is talk about redistribution. They would not talk about a more progressive tax policy, because they see things as working, and as soon as you interfere with tax policy, progressive taxation, their argument is productivity is going to go down. Well, I disagree with that wholeheartedly, again, because I don't believe in I don't buy into the steep wage curve. I believe in the average of us are hovering on a total of an 8%. So from 72, 73 to today, our real wages have grown 8%. And I don't think that that is a real indication of our an improvement in our buying power in that time frame from 73 to today's date. And so, of course, from that argument, I'm going to be more empathetic, sympathetic, argumentative towards more, I'll say it, hold on, folks, sit down, it's the R word, redistribution. And at the end of the hour, I am going to pose to you a really challenging moral thought experiment to see whether or not there's real morality in redistribution, which, because I'm arguing redistribution, I do support the idea that it's also a moral idea. So I'm for more intervention, so to speak, than, say, a right-thinking person would be, because there is an argument to be made that, hey, an unfettered market, let the thinkers and the creators get in and they will hire us. And there's a lot of merit to that. Just history doesn't support it right now from 70 on, okay? So let's go to American Prospect, July 2015. It was a really good analysis, essentially about the Southern economy and how the Southern economy affects the rest of us and what intervention really means. Intervention doesn't necessarily have to be that the government takes from the ultra-rich and gives directly to the poor, though there should be an element of that in the earned income credit. One of the greatest drivers of reduction in poverty that even the Heritage Foundation would support. But in unintended consequences, think about this. The Wall Street Journal had reported that the number of auto industry jobs in the Midwest fell by 33%, right? So where we thought historically our great auto companies were, it's gone, as we kind of know. And Detroit is trying to rebuild in a way that doesn't rely so much on auto industry. So 33% drop. And then it moved to the south. So the southern states increased their auto production by 52%. Pardon me reading here, but Alabama saw a rise in 196% in jobs, according to the auto industry. In the auto industry, South Carolina 121%, Tennessee 103%. I think Toyota's there. Ohio, the great and most controversial state in the last election, declined 36%. Wisconsin, sound familiar in the election? 43%. Michigan, it's a controversial state too, 49%. All drops in auto industry. So when we hear great American jobs, which auto industry was in the 50s, we're not talking to China necessarily. We're talking to South Carolina. We're talking to Tennessee. Alabama. Some of you should go ahead and look up in some of our census data and see just the quality of life people have in Alabama, the land of Jeff Sessions. What does this mean? What this means is there well may be a federalism argument that the leftists, the progressives, need to focus on. Federalism is typically a conservative argument, and it's a great thought experiment, probably the most important reason for American success. It was touted, no doubt. Take a look at Madison's Federalist Paper number 10. It's all right there. It says, look, we have an expansive country. If we have a limited federal government that oversees and tightens it up so that we're all moving and all boats are rising, other than that, let the states do what they want. Now, you have a race to the bottom going on here. Since the mid 2013, 2001, 2013, I'm looking here. So those union folks over in Michigan and Wisconsin and in Ohio, where we hear rhetoric about take America back, where unions were, are now going for Trump, which is okay. But we hear about China. We don't hear about southern states. And why is this? Well, because it becomes more complicated. Southern states typically are what I love the rhetoric, the right to work state. Yeah, you have a right to work for, you know, a nominal wage, not a good wage, a wage that just keeps you enough where you're not going to complain and you're going to get to work. No unions. Remember, I think it was one of the big airplane things, Boeing or Lockheed, wherever, took off from the beautiful state of Seattle. I guess that's a city. Pardon me. I'm getting worked up. I don't know geography. All the way to South Carolina. And of course, the politicians in South Carolina will hail, wow, we're such a success. We brought jobs, jobs, jobs. Well, you know what? National employment rates are 4.4. It's not the issue of jobs anymore. It's the issue of wages. And when you have a right to work state and you have a weak set of a weak federalist system in the sense that the federal government is not ensuring that all boats lift up, but the conservative notion of federalism, which is let's all states do what they want, what you really have is weak federal control over workplace issues, such as collective bargaining, work safety, overtime rules. I believe Alabama, one of these states even Georgia tries to show that how tough they are on states' rights is they don't even have their state-fed law, minimum wage law, at the federal rate. Now, of course, employers have to pay it, but it's just an empty promise. So when you can have companies leave Steel Belt, Rust Belt, Ohio to go to South Carolina, that's great for the South Carolinians if, in fact, we're bringing Ohio work ethic and Ohio strength in unions, strength in workplace wages, but we're not. So what has happened is industry has used this federalist system to ensure that they could go to another state and have a race to the bottom. It's not China. In fact, a lot of companies are sending back from China, if you read the reports, because now they could take advantage of the Southern labor, the Southern weak federalism system, and get around shipping costs. I don't have to ship that car or that stuffed rabbit that my daughter wants on a boat. I could just make it in South Carolina. But if I had to do it in Ohio, where people were making, as we know, real wages that are gone, you start to have real visceral debate but we've lost sight of where the debate is. We've been divided. If we get together and look, what we want is strong laws and protections that allow us to make our decisions, whether we're in South Carolina or Ohio, and it's the same, but it's not the same. And therefore, we are weakened and we are divided amongst ourselves, and our wage curve shows it. It's flat. I'll be right back, and I gotta wipe the sweat off my brow. It's the Ed O'Brien Show. We are talking wages here on AM 1050.
If everybody had an ocean across the USA, then everybody'd be served.
Did you know that every dollar you put into a piece of real estate makes you money 5 ways? Cash flow, money in your pocket each month. Equity capture, the thousands of dollars you create when you have the right team and buy the right property using the right map. Appreciation, real estate doubles in value about every 10 years. Equity buildup, renters pay down your mortgage each month. And finally, the tax advantage. We pay almost no taxes on our cash flow and capital gains. These are the 5 ways we make money in real estate, which is why real estate accounts for more millionaires in the world today than any other investment vehicle. You should have some real estate in your portfolio. To learn how, attend one of our free workshops. Call 1-866-971-8970 or go to getmymapnow.com and register for the next available workshop. That's 866-971-8970 or getmymapnow.com.
Hi, this is Jason McDermott inviting you to join me and my crew for our all-new show called Life Camera Action every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. We'll talk about everything from what happened last week to what's going on today to what I got planned for next week. So in my world, cameras are always rolling, and every Wednesday night, so will you. So join us here Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. on Kcaa 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and the all-new 102.3 FM.
For more local radio every day, tune into KCAA Loma Linda.
Oh boy, welcome back to the Ed O'Brien Show. I am Ed O'Brien, AM 1050, as we wrap up our hour here, and maybe I'll try to calm down. And just to be clear, because you know, when I'm in court, this happens. I start losing my mind, and I think I scare people. What I really want is us, and when I say us, I mean average American. You know, going to work every day, whether you can afford one car or two, whether you can afford a weekend in San Diego or a Paris vacation. You know, we're all doing the same thing. Some of us may have a 3,000 square foot house. Some of us may have a 1,500. But nonetheless, you know what? We are on the same page that we want our fellow person to be doing well so that we can end the vitriol in our national debate. And what I want most importantly is for us to be focused like a laser in on what we see as the source of the vitriol. And let's not get sidetracked into China, into immigration, because when you look historically, there are good times, China and immigration is not a problem. In fact, it's welcomed. And in bad times, like we seem to be in now, because productivity is in an unusual situation where it's kind of stagnating, wages are stagnating. But I want to focus on that because it depends on, it depends on what data set you take and what policies you want to develop. I just don't think we're in the time now where we can all take a back seat. I think that I was trying to argue that if we have federalized, strong National Labor Relations Board ensuring some equality across the states, those in South Carolina that want to perhaps take a look at collectivization and bargaining as a shop, if that's what they choose, they would be protected, just as they were in Ohio. And I might add, if you look at the history, the golden age of the auto industry coincided with strong unions. I don't necessarily believe that every shop has to be unionized, but every shop should be governed by the idea that whether you're in South Carolina or Southern California, you're on the same playing field with respect to labor laws. But because we have a very weak federalist system right now, we can jump to Alabama and have Alabama legislatures have a race to the bottom. And obviously that's going to entice corporations. So, and that's supported by the data, and no less of an authority than the Wall Street Journal. Now, a little thought experiment that was developed that I've gone back to. I was introduced to it in college, and I've just really been struggling with it again. It was developed by a philosopher, John Rawls, and the essence of it is this. And by the way, in case you think it gets completely wacky here, philosophers, just like scientists, like Einstein. Einstein began his E equals MC squared theory of relativity simply sitting at his desk doing patents at the patent office with a thought experiment. It's trying to get ourselves thinking from a position that is unbiased and a good jump-off point. So John Rawls posited this idea. Let's think about ourselves behind a veil of ignorance. We know nothing. What's on the other side? We don't know if it's a capitalist society based on high tech, high industry, needing math skills. We don't know if it's a war economy, whether it's a warrior, tribal, small, indigenous culture. We have no idea. So we don't even know what our skills are. So we don't know what place we would take on the other side. Okay? But we do know that to some degree, there's going to be perhaps rich and poor. There are going to be those that have it and those that don't. It's the one thing we know. So, from that spot, what do you choose as far as an economic system of distribution when you get on the other side? Suppose we even add that we know that there are far more people on the lower end of the economic ladder than there are on the high end. And remember, you don't know what skill sets you have, nor do you know what skill sets are needed to succeed on the other side. So you can't even say, well, I'll just get in there, work my hardest, and I'll move up. Because you might be a math whiz, but you're just, sent over to a warring tribal indigenous culture where you really got to be physically fit, okay? And Rawls really deals a lot with these suppositions and challenges in his theory of justice. So, from this thought experiment, what Rawls posits is it's moral to say we would want to ensure that there is distribution to those of us that when we jump on the other side are at least cared for to a degree. That we all of us will have the rights and privileges and immunities that we want to have observed, though there's critiques on that. But nonetheless, it would seem like if you here you got your spouse, your life partner, and your kids, and you're about to jump on the other side of the veil of ignorance, and you don't know where you're going to end up, you would want to have some guarantee that you're going to provide for yourself and for your family. Now, what Rawls says is, it's fine to have inequality. It's fine to have Tiger Woods. It's fine to have George Clooney. It's fine to have all those things. In fact, we need them so that we can find and generate enough income for the rest of us, so long as it benefits the rest of us. That's the key moral inquiry. And so the reason why I wrestle with this is because I think it does provide us, at least in a challenging, compelling way, even if we disagree, that there is some morality that says to us, you know what, we have to guarantee some minimum basis of welfare to those of us that don't have the skills recognized in the society we jump into, or don't have the intrinsic natural qualities that are favored within that society. Okay? And I get to that because San Bernardino, according to the Coyote Chronicle, over there it's Cal State San Bernardino, the average person working alone in San Bernardino made $14,000. $14,000. That's what a person made. If you put a household together, whatever that household is, which in San Bernardino is generally constituted of at least a couple families, 35,000. Call it 36. The average in California, $64,000. We have really poor people here. Really poor. And I think that when you think about the Rawls experiment and you were thinking to yourself, do I want to be that $14,000 person or the $14 million person? I want to be the $14 million person. But I don't know that I'm going to get there. The luck of the draw could put me at the 14,000. And because I got a spouse and 2 kids, I find it okay to have some system of redistribution. And one of the things I think we need to look at next week is how we would do that redistribution in a very fair, ethical manner and put people to work and secure them in their workplace so that we all are gaining an improvement across our society. Thank you. See you next week on the Ed O'Brien Show, and stay cool, everybody. Goodbye.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts now.